officials. Stu, what do you think this John Bolton thing is about?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think that there is real suspicion by some in the White House that he, was using classified documents to wind up trashing Trump after they had their little breakup. And, in his book, he mentions lots of details. And I frankly would not be surprised at all if he has classified documents. I've been consistent in this from the beginning. I will say that I'm not really that concerned, frankly, about these high-level officials having classified documents at their houses. I mean, if you've caught them selling them to the Russians or something, then that is a real scandal. But like the fact that a bunch of people take home stuff from their office, I was consistent on this with Trump and with Biden. I really just don't care that much about it. I feel like it's an overblown scandal, but. Trump is not happy with the way that Bolton treated him after they split, and so. So
you think? Do you think this is really? You think you could do that to me? This is a political payback?
I don't think it's that simple. I mean, look, I do think that if John Bolton was out there on the news every day saying how wonderful Donald Trump is, I'm skeptical as to whether his home would be raided today. that yes, I would say. If you look at it from that side, I think that's pretty obvious. However, I don't think that's the only reason. I don't think he's just like targeting random enemies or perceived opponents. He's got a lot of those, and he could be raiding everybody's house, right? I think he does actually suspect that and I say he, the people around him, the administration, the people who are responsible for doing this. I don't think he's necessarily directing this at his hand. I'm just saying, people like Kash Patel. Kash Patel wrote in his book that he thought, John Bolton was a key member of the deep state. He had his suspicions coming into that role, and I think he's trying to see if those suspicions were accurate.
Yeah. I agree with you on that last part, especially strongly, that I don't think Donald Trump is actually directing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's hired competent people, and he has directed them to take apart the deep state. And I wouldn't doubt that John Bolton is part of the deep state. I wish we were going after others first. But, hey, if he was part of the deep state and he has broken the law in some way or another, then he should pay. I agree with you to some degree about the classified documents. Everybody does it, apparently. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. It says classified. I'm not taking it home. So you either have to declassify a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter, which is really the right thing to do. Stop overclassifying things. Mm-hmm. Declassify the things that don't matter. And, if you take them home, you take them home. Okay. But classified information should mean classified information. Eyes only, that kind of stuff, that should mean what it says. And you can't hold some people accountable for classified information and others not. If this started with Hillary Clinton. I mean, you want to know the biggest offender of this was Hillary Clinton taking the things out of the Schiff and then retyping them and sending them to her over the open internet. I mean, that's insanity. But nobody did anything about her. So wait, we went after Donald Trump, but not Hillary Clinton, and we didn't do anything about Joe Biden, who had the stuff, but now we're going after, John Bolton. Okay, you go after John Bolton. Let's make sure we're going after everybody who takes classified information home or is doing something with it. If you have classified information at home, and it happens to be next to your Corvette, but everybody does it, well, then it's not a problem unless you've used it. Unless you've taken that information and you've exposed that information or used that information for blackmail or to destroy somebody or whatever, then I'm sorry. You didn't just take it home. You took it home with a reason, and that's a problem.
And I think that's what...
Agree with that?
I think that's what the suspicion is, right? I mean, he certainly has written in his book very critically about Trump. I mean, he revealed a lot of internal details. Now, some of that could have been memory, right? I mean, he was there and he was involved in a lot of those things. He was a high-level Trump official, right? So he was in the middle of a lot of these conversations. And, whether you believe all the stuff he said or not, it's not surprising that he would come out with a book that was critical of Trump after they kind of had a split. That being said, you're right. I think if he's using that stuff to bolster those claims, if he's doing that, it's a problem. There are levels of it, and I think you're right. If you're just taking home documents, maybe some that shouldn't even be classified, I think it's slap on the wrist territory, right? I don't think that it's necessarily that serious. If you're using it though for your own personal enrichment, which might be an accusation here, or that just to sink a president or an opponent, that could be serious.
Mm-hmm. Stop overclassifying things is the first step. Start holding everybody accountable for if they take something. And then decide, was it an actual mistake or is this a pattern? Are they using it for anything? But there has to be clear laws. And if it's a law, then you have to hold them accountable. And you have to hold everyone accountable. I mean, Tim, where are you, in Maine, Tim?
Yes, sir, I'm in Maine.
Yeah, so you're kind of on this same thing with John Bolton. Go ahead with your thought.
My thoughts is we've been extremely critical of Bondi and everybody in the higher echelon now that's trying to unravel this mess. You or I would be in jail doing pre-confinement, waiting for our trials to come up. We can't have this anymore. People are getting restless, and I'm afraid for what could happen if we fail at this venture.
So, Tim, I agree with you to some degree, but let me ask you, do you feel that we're starting to see some progress? Because I felt this way strongly about 2 months ago. I was like, I'm not seeing any progress. But now I am starting to see, there are 3 grand juries that have been convened on some of the stuff that has been released. It looks like Donald Trump is starting to take control of Washington, D.C. and the crime on the streets. The people's perception is changing, and I think that they're starting to get their arms around some of the corruption. But it's taking a lot longer than I had hoped. But are you seeing any changes in that? Is it getting worse, better, or about the same?
No, it's getting better for sure. But you're going to have trouble lining up these dominoes so they fall correctly. And I think starting at a local level was the best way to do that, because normally they eat themselves when you start at the bottom and you work your way up. I just retired from corrections, and it's the same way. These people are acting no different. They're at a criminal level, all of them at a criminal level, that they're starting to haul in there. You and I just can't make stuff up. I mean, try getting a mortgage and lying about it. You can't do it. And that's the great way, broken windows type of event, if you will, go back to New York.
I agree with you. Tim, thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's the one thing about the mortgage thing, too. They went after Donald Trump about the mortgage for what they say was inflating the price of Mar-a-Lago. I don't know what the price of Mar-a-Lago is. I don't think anybody does. There are no comps for Mar-a-Lago. It is literally a national historic site. He's pumped tens, maybe even $100 million into that thing since he bought it. They wanted to sell it for $30 million when it was a complete wreck. And that's what they tried to do with, his trial up in New York. That was, the one that they just overturned the $500 million fine on because he said it was worth, I don't remember the exact numbers, $500 million, and the bank said, no, it's worth $200 million. But that's the way it happens. I could say my house is worth anything, but, when you buy a house or you sell a house, there's going to be somebody come out to appraise it. That's how the banks work. So when he said Mar-a-Lago's worth $500 million, they didn't take his word for it. They went out and they assessed it, and they gave it a value, and they said it was $300 million or whatever. That's what he was tried for. That's opinions. Okay, that's not lying. That's an opinion. And it's also something so stupid because if you really are trying to get away with it, you're not going to get away with it. And somebody who is in the real estate business knows that because they know the banks send out somebody to appraise the value. What the real crime here is, and nobody seems to be really doing anything. I'm anxious to see if Adam Schiff goes to jail. What Adam Schiff did is more of a crime that you and I would go to jail for immediately. And it's a real crime. He's claiming that he lives in his home in, I don't remember, Maryland. But he's also claiming that he lives in his home as his main home in California. Well, when you have your residence, that you get a special tax deduction for that. You pay less because that is your primary home. Now, if you go and you have a second home, you pay. You don't get that exemption, okay? You pay more money in taxes for the second home. Well, Adam Schiff was claiming, primary residence in 2 states. That's against the law. You can't do that. That is actual fraud. I know they're investigating him, and there's like 3 people that have done this recently. 3 big, I think they're all Democrats, but 3 big politicians have done this recently. Why aren't they in jail now? Because you and I would be in jail. The IRS would be all over us. They'd be swarming us, and we wouldn't have a chance of avoiding jail. I don't care who you are. This is the thing that Donald Trump has to fix. And I think he is. I was really hard on Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, I think, is starting to get it together a little bit more. It seems to be moving forward. We do have grand juries that have been convened. It looks like we might have some arrests that are coming. They are building a case slowly but surely. I mean, the new information that came out about James Comey just today is pretty damning. They released to Congress, they released redacted stuff. And I think it was Pam Bondi who went over it and said, you can't release this. You got to release it unredacted because unredacted tells the whole story about James Comey. And it looks like he knowingly was releasing classified information, knowingly telling people to leak it to the New York Times. All of that is illegal. And they just released that, I think, yesterday, unredacted. So you're starting to see Pam Bondi actually do her job in a way where she's building a case. Now, it's got to go somewhere. It's not good enough. It is only more frustrating when we know, wait a minute, there are the facts. There they are. And then they do nothing. So we'll see. We'll see. Patience on this. All right, let me tell you about PragerU. Imagine you're walking through a museum and the paintings are beautiful, but half of them have been painted over. Blank canvas where history used to be. I love these people who are like, I love America. We just want to remake it. Wait, what? I love the Mona Lisa. I just want to remake it. No, let's restore it, okay? It's worth restoring. But right now, stories are being erased, truths are being whitewashed, ideas edited out because they don't fit the current script. PragerU is the restoration crew. They don't just give you facts. They bring you history, science, and values back in a way that is engaging, accessible, and impossible to ignore. The 5-minute videos that feel like somebody handed you the missing pages from a book you've been reading your whole life, that's really important. In a world that you'd rather paint over with truth, PragerU picks up the brush and restores the full picture. I have to tell you, I've partnered recently with PragerU. I'm doing something, I'm hosting these videos that are going to be put into high schools all around the country through the Department of Education. And they are very, very clear on history. And we use the artifacts and all of the actual facts to tell you the story, good and bad, about America. And it's remarkable. We did Sunday and Monday, I think we did 3 of these videos. They're 5-minute videos. We did 3 of these videos. And the research that went into preparing them, and then the checking of every single word to make sure we got it right. I mean, we argued back and forth over over concepts. Is that really fair to say that? Is it really right to say this? I mean, they do their job. We're really trying to do a good job to restore. PragerU.com/Glenn. They need your donation. I've donated my time. I've donated my money to help put these things together. Right now, they will match dollar for dollar until the end of August. So if you can, make a donation today at PragerU.com/Glenn. That's PragerU.com/Glenn. 10 seconds and back to the show. All right, let me go to Eve in Utah. Let me start with Robert in Washington. I'm sorry, and then Eve will get to you next. Robert, go ahead.
Hello,
Robert, are you there? Hi,
yes.
Go ahead.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
What's on my mind would be the raising of the minimum wage. Minimum wage is never designed as a living wage, and as a skilled laborer myself, all they did was when they raised the minimum wage was close the gap between us skilled laborers and then unskilled laborers.
Correct.
That's what's on my mind. How do we get back to that difference to where we have people that actually want to go out and get a skill and not try to make a living on minimum wage?
So this is going to be a tougher question to answer in the future because we have AI coming. By the way, did anybody see what Elon Musk tweeted yesterday? Oh, this is terrifying. He said, wait until you see the new version of Grok. I've never seen anything like it. I do believe we've hit AGI. So that's scary. But anyway, it's going to change and get even harder for labor all across the board. But you're asking a question, calling from Washington. You've seen this firsthand. You either have to change the leadership in Washington State, or you need to move to a state that understands. Washington State is, I believe, lost as California and Oregon. They're not coming back. They're going to get worse and worse and worse until they collapse on their own weight. And I think that's close. But you've seen firsthand what happens because you can't afford as a business to pay somebody as a entry-level job to do those things and then pay them something where it's just I'd be better off paying somebody who has real skills to do that and ask them to do a little bit more. That's the way business thinks. They're not going to pay somebody who doesn't know how to do the job, those high levels. The only thing that will solve that is not the federal government. It's your own state. Those are state, and they should remain as powers of the state.
This is Glenn Beck.
You ever stop to think about all the moments in life that really hinge on one single decision? Maybe it was the job you took, the person you married, the move you made. Looking back, it's amazing how one choice can alter the whole trajectory of your life. Now think about this. A young woman sits in a clinic. She's scared. She's confused. She's convinced she has absolutely no options. Everybody in her life tells her that. She's on the edge of a decision that will change her life and another life forever. And in that moment, what she needs most is the truth, not pressure, not judgment, just a glimpse of the child growing inside of her. And that's what Preborn provides, free ultrasounds that let her see the reality, hear the heartbeat, and recognize this isn't a problem to solve. It's a life. Now, the problem to solve is how do you raise that child? How do you afford to do it? Preborn is there for that, too. Your monthly support is so critical. $28 a month will save a life. Restoring a precious gift from God. Dial pound 250, say the keyword baby, pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com, preborn.com. Make sure you go to preborn.com/Beck and donate, but read all about all of the things they do. It's amazing. One heartbeat at a time. Sponsored by Preborn.
Get all the information you need to be ahead of the game. It's the free email newsletter from glennbeck.com. Sign up today.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck Program. You know, the Democrats are just losing all kinds of credibility, and people are switching parties like they've never switched away from the Democratic Party before. And here's why. Everybody's favorite, Congresswoman Crockett, on the D.C. crime crackdown. Listen to this.
ICE, for the most part, is nothing but a ride. That's all they were supposed to do for the most part, right? It's like, you know what? This person is undocumented, or this person re-enters the country illegally, all the things, and then they have an ICE hold. And then ICE gets them so they can then send them out. Right. That's all ICE is supposed to do. Look at them as a fancy Uber driver for immigrants. That's all they're supposed to do.
Oh, my God.
And now they're running into places and doing raids, and they're falling all over each other, injuring each other. Like, we are a joke.
She's with Gavin Newsom. She's fabulous. Can we go to cut 3? Here she is on the crime crackdown.
Tell me what it's like in D.C. Tell me what you think this is really all about.
So it's very dystopian to see. It's funny because I used to watch like The Handmaid's Tale, and I can't. Right. I never finished, and I can't watch it because it is too close to reality.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we're seeing is this militarization. And obviously it started in your state. That was kind of the testing grounds. Going to your state, going to a Black woman mayor's city first.
Oh, it's her city.
And now we are in yet another Black woman-led city and taking over. And to me, it goes, again, to the level of racism and hate that is constantly spewed out of this administration.
What a stunning twist. That's like M. Night Shyamalan. I would never expect her to go to a racial claim. Whoa.
I know. Now let's go to Pritzker, the governor from Illinois, and what he has to say about what's going on. Cut 5.
Must we?
I built a Holocaust museum. And one thing about that experience that I can tell you, and I worked with Holocaust survivors for more than a decade to build this museum. One thing I learned in the process of that is that it doesn't take very long to tear apart a constitutional republic. Indeed, the Nazis did it in 53 days. And our democracy is almost as fragile.
Started in 1922.
And we're seeing it right now.
Yes, we are. Who's been tearing it apart, you fat? Anyway, so now we're pre-Nazi Germany, according to him. Uber drivers, ICE, it's The Handmaid's Tale in Washington, D.C. It's pre-Nazi Germany in Illinois. And here comes Stacey Abrams to help us with more. Cut 6.
I want to tie this back to the abundance agenda and how you think about blue state power. If it is true that he's a grand Ayatollah, that mystical power extends and can be, he can anoint his prophets, and he can remain in.
Stop. So we are
so good.
We are now. He's now the Ayatollah. He's Hitler in The Handmaid's Tale, who is also the mystical Ayatollah who is appointing new prophets.
We have said he has a lot of energy, Glenn, and there's a lot of different roles to pull off.
He is covering a lot. Now, he's also trying to make peace, but Susan Rice, with all of her deep, deep credibility, has something to say about that. Let's play
Nicole, it's pathetic. It's been clearly and repeatedly established, including by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by Marco Rubio, that Russia interfered in the 2016 election by disinformation campaigns, by social media efforts, by all sorts of means short of manipulating the actual vote.
She's still pushing it.
That's just a fact. Now, obviously, Donald Trump doesn't like that fact. He doesn't like the fact that the intelligence community and the Senate bipartisan intelligence committee assessed that this interference was intended to
stop. I can't. How is this still happening with no pushback from, what was it, ABC or NBC? No pushback from NBC. None. Zero. All of the documentation has come out that shows she was part of the conspiracy. She was part of it. She was a ringleader in this. It's now showing all the documents, the facts. There's this little fantasy that the deep state has been pushing, and then there are the actual documents written to and by people like Susan Rice showing this was all made up. Wow. Wow. And that strange Hitler mystical Ayatollah and Handmaid's Tale guy who just wants everybody dressed in red robes cannot get that stopped. That is so very weird.
Glenn,
so weird.
You've worked with charities for a long time. You've founded your own. It's done all this incredible work around the globe. Would you consider potentially putting together a fundraiser for the Democrats to come up with another literary reference than The Handmaid's Tale? Is it possible we could get them a different book just so they could say that title of it? Now, I know Jasmine Crockett, of course, is so stupid she couldn't even act like she read the book. She only said she was watching the Hulu show. But still, can we get them some reference other than The Handmaid's Tale?
They're already doing it. They're already doing it. When you talk about literary stuff, they're already doing it, Stu. Here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The DNC has now blacklisted terms that they don't want any of their people using. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Now tell me what these terms have in common. Blacklisted terms. Privilege. Violence, as in environmental violence. Dialoguing. Triggering. Othering, microaggression, holding space, body shaming, subverting norms, systems of oppression, cultural appropriation, the Overton window, existential threat to the climate, existential threat to democracy, existential threat to the economy, radical transparency, stakeholders, the unhoused, food insecurity, housing insecurity, people who immigrated, birthing person, cisgender, dead naming, heteronormative, patriarchy, LGBTQIA+, BIPOC, allyship, incarcerated people, and involuntary confinement. Those are the words that the Democrats are now telling their people, don't use any of these words. Those are the words that they forced everybody to use. So they are reading from a new book. They're just burning their own book.
Gosh,
it is absolutely incredible what is happening right now. Just absolutely nuts.
I don't see how they're going to get through conversations without those words. Those are the only words they say.
I know. I could just add some conjunctions in there, and I could make that into a speech. Let me go to Eve in Utah. Hello, Eve. Welcome to the Glenn Beck Program.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi.
It's a privilege to speak with you, gentlemen. I'm calling from the bluest red state in the Union. That'd be Utah. I have been reading the headlines in KSL and how Governor Cox is refusing to send troops to arrest immigrants. I'm calling specifically to say that I think there's a significant problem here. I've seen illegal immigrants, at least I'm just assuming, but these are people who are not proficient in English. So I'm going into 7-Eleven. I'm going into school districts are hiring a lot of illegal aliens. I know because the kids that are in the classes are parts of members of families that are here from Venezuela, from Guatemala, from different countries in Africa. I have concerns about Best Buy hiring a lot of people who I'm not sure if they're documented, immigrants, but I have friends who cannot get hours at their work because they've got supervisors, specifically at Best Buy, one friend in particular, who could not have, who had to quit because she was not getting the hours that she needed to support herself. She had a Spanish supervisor who was hiring other Hispanic employees, and then if you spoke Spanish, she felt like she was discriminated against because she didn't speak Spanish and she was not getting the hours that she needed. She had to quit. So I see a lot of this in, in different companies and different businesses where I have friends and neighbors who are applying for jobs and they're not getting them because they don't speak Spanish or because they're not Hispanic.
So may I make some very controversial statements here about your phone call. First of all, let's start with KSL. If you're getting your news from KSL, be careful. There's always been a trusted source in Utah, and for many reasons. And they just like everybody else has a really hard time hiring journalists that are not woke. It's the same thing as some of the Utah universities, BYU in particular. That has gone woke. How has that gone woke? Because they can't find anybody to fill those jobs that can live the standards and also not be woke. So you have to be really careful of the sources. Don't take anything that you see in some of these sources to be gospel, if you will. Be very careful and be aware. And that's not a universal blanket on anything. That is just be aware of that. Stop trusting some of those sources because who owns them. Start trusting the sources because they are actually telling the truth. And in many cases, that is not happening in the media, no matter who owns it. The second thing is, I'm really concerned about Utah. You hit it right on the nail, right on the head. It is the bluest red state. That thing used to be so deeply red, but they have chipped away little by little. Cox is he's a big part of that. But they have chipped away little by little, and I think, personally, I believe in Isaiah. And any place that claims to be, God's people, Rome, the Bible Belt, Utah, Isaiah comes to mind all the time. And I will clean out my own house first. I think these cities that claim to be very religious and have let it go to literal hell because the people have just been arrogant. They just think it'll always be this way. I think Utah is coming for a giant reckoning. There's a reason I live in Idaho. There's a couple of reasons, but one reason I live in Idaho and not Utah is because I think Utah is going to pay a very, very heavy price for the things that they are allowed to happen. And every time I go into the big cities in Utah, I am shocked at how bad they are. So you just need to wake your neighbors up, and if your neighbors are awake, you must be active. It's the same story in Texas. Texans are asleep at the switch. Now, I am thrilled to see that Chip Roy is running and is going to be, I think, hopefully, will be elected as our next attorney general. Ken Paxton will go into the Senate. I think those are great things. But locally, the problem many times is locally. And you have to be awake. And Texans are asleep. I think Utahns are absolutely asleep. And you have to wake up on that and do the things locally that will hold your city's feet to the fire and hold your city's feet to the Constitution and to the actual rule of law. Look at those blacklisted terms that the Democrats are now running from. They created all of those terms. They're now running from all of those terms. You hear anybody in your city using those terms, make sure you let everybody know that's somebody that shouldn't win the next election, and you do something about it. You organize and do something about it. Local, local, local. But I think you're right about what you're seeing. All right, back in just a second. Let me tell you about our sponsor this half hour. It is Z Factor. Sometimes our culture treats... I'm sorry, what is it? Oh, it's my Patriot Supply. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong hour. I'm just ahead of myself. Let me tell you about my Patriot Supply. Everyone has that friend who thinks, the apocalypse looks like, zombies pouring down Main Street. I don't think that's what it's going to be like. Although, did I tell you about the zombie spiders I read about today? I don't know what those are, but I don't want to know what those are. I don't know if we're all going to need bunkers and, crossbows, learning how to tan leather by hand. I don't know. But I know there are going to be lots of things that are going to be a lot boring than that. Power outages, supply chain breakdowns, grocery stores cleaned out before you even get there, that kind of stuff. You don't have to be that guy to be ready. You don't have to live in a bunker or start a farm, although I wouldn't, pass on that if you have the opportunity. You should do one simple thing. Get food from My Patriot Supply. The emergency food kits are built for real people, real situations, and a 25-year shelf life. Packed to last, easy to store, and you don't need to wear camouflage to enjoy them. Although that also helps. Right now, My Patriot Supply is giving away 4 weeks of emergency food kit. Just go to mypatriotsupply.com. Find out how to claim your free 4-week food supply and join millions of Americans who are preparing with My Patriot Supply. That's a 4-week emergency food supply that you can claim right now at mypatriotsupply.com/Glenn. mypatriotsupply.com/Glenn.
You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences. There's rough terrain ahead. Saddle up, my friend, and stay tuned. Glenn Beck will be right back.
We have to take phone calls more often. I mean, the phones are jammed with your thoughts and what you want to talk about, and I want to take you. I was just not going to be able to get to everything. I want to talk to you about the new VW subscription to more power for your car. What does that mean? It's, again, a renter's state. Again, a second wave of inflation, I believe, is coming. We should talk about that. Chat control. Really terrifying control from the state on that. And I also want to talk to you about Angela from Tennessee. She called in yesterday. I want to talk to you about the American dream being in ruins and its renewal. We're going to do that next.
This is Glenn Beck.